All right, hello everyone. This is Sam from Gaddy Napoleon Tailoring, and I'm here with Matt Gott, the Director of Education at Fort Ligonier.
Hello.
Today we've teamed up and we're going to make a short video teaching all of you how to take the measurements that are required for drafting a pair of breeches if you're intending to use our drafting system, or if you are ordering a pair of breeches or attending one of our workshops and I request measurements from you. This video will show you how to take those measurements and give you some tips and tricks on how to be successful with them. Now, if you are ordering a pair of breeches from us or you are attending one of our workshops, you will receive a short little list of measurements that need to be taken here. For today's purposes, we're going to be focusing on the lower body measurement section down here, which you can see includes a series of measurements, and these will be the ones that we'll demonstrate today on how we're going to be taking. Now, as is usual in these videos, I've done a little bit of preparatory work before we got started in order to speed things along here. So you'll notice on Matt, I have a few areas marked with some string here. I'll explain these when we actually get to them. But basically they're marker points on the body so that we know that these things stay the same. Some of these measurements we need to take both in circumference and in depth. So these are just good anchoring points for us. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and work in the same order that would be on the measurement chart here. So the first measurement we're going to take is a waist. Now a pair of breeches tends to ride around the hip bone, which you can see here with the string that's wrapped around Matt's waist. They don't ride much higher than that, at least in the period we're focusing on, mid-century to later, early late century. As you start getting into the 1790s, these things start to rise more, and we'll be talking about something different. But the principle of measuring a waist would stay the same. So we're going to go ahead and take our measuring tape and we're going to wrap it around Matt along that area that we have marked with the string. Now, a fun fact when taking measurements of breeches, it's actually a good idea to have the person you're measuring wear a pair of blue jeans, especially ones that are fitted quite well like Matt's are here. Blue jeans tend to ride in the same part of the body that we want breeches to. So that becomes useful and you might be able to eliminate the string. If you're wearing something else, go ahead and apply the string right around the hip bone line. So taking the measurement here, wrap the tape around, put 2 fingers behind the tape, make note of the measurement. In this case, it happens to be 39.5 inches, and then go ahead and jot that down on your measurement chart. The next measurement is the seat measurement. Now the seat is our polite way of kind of talking about the butt section of a person. This would be where you get more of the fullness from the rump area, as it were. So we're going to take our tape again and we're going to wrap around below the waist on that thickest part of the seat. Once again, putting 2 fingers in the tape and making note of the measurement. In this case, it happens to be 43 inches. So we're going to go ahead and write that down on our measurement chart. Thigh measurement. Obviously, we know what part of the body the thigh is. We want to take this measurement around the thickest part of the thigh, but we want to make sure we're actually on the thigh proper. We don't want to be riding up too high into the center crotch point there. So I've got that marked out with the tape here. Once again, thickest part of the thigh. 2 fingers behind the tape. We're going to call that 24.5 inches. Now below this, you'll see I have a 1-inch piece of wool that I had Matt wrap around his leg here. What I asked Matt to do was to tie this off in the same place that he would wear a garter, have he been wearing something, let's say, like leggings. I tend to find that the customer locates this area much better than I ever can because they kind of know where something like this band going around their lower leg is comfortable for them. I made a slight adjustment too. I'm asking Matt to bend his knee slightly just so people can see where it is. So you can see his kneecap is right here and this is slightly just below that, and good, straighten it back up again. Now the reason we did this is we want this to be representative of the terminus of a pair of breeches, right? This is where they'll end. And breeches tend to have something like a 1-inch band, so this becomes very useful for us. So the next measurement we're going to take here is something called the massive knee. So this would be the thickest part of the knee. So I'm going to ask Matt once again to bend his knee, if he would, a little bit, so we can locate the center of that kneecap, which happens to be right here. And you go ahead and stand back up again. And we're going to wrap the tape around at that point, and we're going to take that measurement, the thickest part of the knee, and we're going to call that 18 1/4. Okay. Measurement taken in the same way, tape wrapped around, fingers behind here, so it's not too tight. 18 1/4. That's the thickest part of his knee. Now the next measurement is the small of knee. So that's going to be the measurement that's just below that, and it's exactly where we wrote that we have this tape at. We're going to call that 16 inches. Okay, so you can see there's a really big difference in a short space here, and if we ever make a video on how to construct breeches, or you attend one of our workshops, we'll talk about how that gets tackled. But just note that, so that's why both of those measurements are important. All right, so now we're going to start taking some vertical measurements, now that we've gotten all of our circumference measurements taken. So the first one is going to be the outseam. Now the outseam is the entire length of the seam that will run down the side of a pair of breeches. It does not include the waistband. So once again, that's where wrapping the string around the waist becomes important. So I'm going to have Matt turn to the side here a little bit. But you'll notice what the string is exactly where the waistband is on his blue jeans, which is why I actually do recommend taking these measurements with blue jeans. But the outseam is just going to run straight down the outside of the leg from where that string is, or where the waistband is on your jeans, and to the top of the piece of wool that we've used here to represent his knee band. And that's 19 inches, if you can see that on the camera. So we'll make a note of that. The outseam is 19 inches. Now the next measurement is going to be the inseam. So if Matt will come back to the front again. Now the inseam is going to be taken from the sort of center crotch point, is what we call this here. It's that intersection where the inner legs and a fly and the rear end of your pants come together. There's that sort of four-way intersection of seams. Now to take these, I have a separate measuring tape that I use. This one happens to have a sort of a stiffened brass section at the top. Basically all this does is it allows you to take the measurement nice and high up into the crotch, which we do want on a pair of breeches, but without getting too personal with the person. If you are going to be taking multiple sets of measurements on people who tend to be rather strangers to you, I do recommend getting one of these, actually. So anyway, the measurement's kind of taken the same way. The brass piece will be put up into the top. Now, on a pair of breeches, the crotch is really high. So this is going to be awkward for everybody, no matter what. But you place the tape up in there high, but without being, too awkward about it, I suppose. And you're going to measure it down, once again, to the top of that tape that wraps around below the knee. And we're going to call that 11 1/2. Now, we're going to take some more of the vertical measurements. So if Matt would then turn to the side, we're going to take a measurement that is our depth to thigh. So basically we're going to measure from the top string here to the thigh string. And we're going to call that 11 inches. Then we have a depth to the mass of knee measurement. So that would be where we took that knee. So just feel for the kneecap. We're going to call that 17 inches. And we obviously don't need to go any further because we already took the outseam. Now, Matt's going to go ahead and face the camera one more time. We're going to take a measurement called the center front measurement. Now, this is going to be the measurement that will allow us to determine how much cloth do we need to cover this section of the breeches, which would be from that the center crotch point down here, all the way up to the top of the center front. So what I'm actually going to ask Matt to do is hold the tip of this tape right at that intersection of those seams, and then try to stand up straight as much as he can, just to be normal. We're going to take the tape and we're going to pull a little bit of pressure on it. We want this measurement to be taken fairly tight. We're going to call that 8 1/2. So that's the center front measurement. Now Matt's going to turn all the way around. Now we're going to do the same thing on the back. We're going to take the center back measurement. Now this one is going to require Matt to crouch down. And the reason for that is when we draft these, not yet. When we draft these, we need to make sure that we have enough of that bubble butt in the pair of breeches so that whenever he does crouch, he's got enough extra cloth back here to fill that out. This is one of the differences between later garments, 19th century garments, early 20th century garments such as the jeans, and 18th century garments is they haven't totally figured out a cleaner way to do this yet. So you end up with this sort of large mass of cloth back here that gives us that extra. So what Matt's going to do is he's going to take the tape and he's going to hold it at that same intersection that he did from the front. And I'm going to take the tape from the back. And at this point, I'm going to ask Matt to crouch down like he's a catcher in a baseball game. And then I'm going to measure up to where that waistband is. We're going to call it 18 inches. You can stand up. And you can see what that did was it extended his glutes, which allowed us to take a full measurement of what we're going to need. Okay, if we had just taken that measurement from here, if we could demonstrate this, Matt, go ahead and do the same thing again. While he's standing up, we're a full inch short. It's 17. So that's why the crouch is necessary. Now, if the customer can't crouch, either because of health reasons or age reasons, an alternative to this would be, Matt, if you could just lift your leg up, get them a stool or something to stand on, and you can take the measurement this way, but it won't quite be as accurate. But if you get them a little stool, get that knee bent at least 90 degrees, that's an alternative way. Maybe add a little bit to that measurement, just to make sure that you have enough. And that's it, folks. That's all we need to measure a pair of breeches up. If you are attending one of our workshops or you're ordering a pair of breeches, then all we would require at this point is that you make sure that those measurements are accurate. Take them twice if need be. Absolutely have someone else take them for you. It's not something you can do by yourself. You'd fill out the measurement chart and you'd send them in to us. If you're ordering a pair of breeches from me where I can see you in person, then I would do this for you. Lastly, I'll say if you are trying the drafting system that we already have a video posted about, this is how we get the measurements that we talked about plotting in that. So if you haven't had an opportunity to try the drafting system yet, or you have but you were confused about how to measure, hopefully that was helpful to you. So once again, I'm Sam Napoleon from Gaddy Napoleon Tailoring. This is Matt Galt, the Director of Education at Fort Ligonier, and we'll hope to see you in the future, either as a customer or a visitor at the site. Take care, everyone.